Hello and welcome to this video. As you'll see, the title of this video is Departures and Immigration. And I thought it would be fun to give the title a bit of an airport theme, but really it's got nothing to do with an airport or anything like that. So sorry for the clickbait. I'm going to be talking about departures as it pertains to the Six of Swords. As you'll see, I've got a bunch in front of me here, and it's motivated by some recent events that have transpired in my own life, which I won't get into the specifics, of course. Excuse me. But anyways, departures. They come in many different forms. It could be like the ending of a relationship, one person leaving another. It could be the termination of a working relationship, so like a person leaving a job. And then, of course, there could be an actual physical relocation, leaving from one place to another. I also feel like there's a certain directional aspect to departures as well. So, like, is it one party choosing to leave another? Or is it perhaps one pushing the other to leave? Or it could, be a mutual agreement, right? Or in like a more dramatic scenario, I guess, it could be like an explosion and major breakdown of a relationship that forces that separation to occur. So anyways, I guess separations and departures can be messy. And as I said, I recently went through a form of departure in my life, and it just reminded me of the Six of Swords. So I felt called to take some cards out and have a closer look at them and see what they have to say. So I decided to take out the Six of Swords card from every single tarot deck that I have. And I haven't really done this before. It's actually quite a fun exercise, and I encourage everyone to give it a try if you haven't done something like this before. So yeah, just taking out all the cards and trying to find the similarities or differences between them. Just noticing the details on each of the cards and see what they have to say about the topic. So in this case, departures. And I've separated them into a couple different piles, just by their image or depiction style. So yeah, this might be kind of a long video. Alright, this is the best I can do with fitting all the cards on the screen for now. So yeah, I'm gonna start with the pile right here. And this is all the Rider-Waite-Smith based cards, and I guess it's the easiest one for me, just because I started learning tarot with the Rider-Waite-Smith system. So yeah, and because like there are so many cards, like all of them combined, so yeah, I don't think I'm gonna particularly mention like which card is from which deck. But if there's a card that catches your eye and you want to know what that deck is, yeah, feel free to drop me a comment and I will get back to you. So the Rider-Waite-Smith version of the Six of Swords is typically depicted by the subject on a boat with the six swords, and usually it looks like they're departing, heading somewhere towards new waters, right? You might also notice that in many of the depictions, the water on one side of the boat has bigger ripples or waves than the other side. So like in the most traditional Rider-Waite-Smith depiction, you can see there are ripples here, and on the other side the water is very calm and clear. So to me, I think that it can represent, moving from a more turbulent or challenging situation to calmer, more peaceful, places, perhaps physically or emotionally, because it's water, right? And I'm certainly getting, that from, some of the cards here, about the difference in those waves, right? And I find this one particularly interesting because this one, there's no boat with, the contrasting water ripple situation, but there's a clear path and a clear distinction in the colors used between the lower part of the card and the upper part, which is, let me just grab another card here. Let's get a more neutral background. They all have really nice backs. Okay, sure, let's go with this one. But as you can see, the upper part of the card is like very nice and colorful. And if you cover the top part, the rest of this bottom part is like very gloomy and, just not as nice. So I think with this difference in coloration here, I think it goes to show that sort of like new hope that's on the other side, and the optimism that comes with this situation. And then next I decided to take a look at some of the smaller details on these cards. So for example, in this one, I'm noticing there's a cracked egg, and I guess, I don't know, maybe throughout the process of this departure, this leaving from one place to another, there are some things that might get broken, that might need to be shattered in order for something like this to take place. In this one, there are these boats right here, and to me, whenever I see boats, it's like representing new opportunities for me. So I thought that was a nice thing to include on that card. And then here we've got a butterfly, and this is about transformation. So there's that. And then right here, you can see that there's a Mercury glyph or symbol, and it's shown like hovering above the subject's hand. And I think the way that the palm is facing upwards like that shows a certain openness. It's like the subject has tried to communicate. We're talking about Mercury here, right? So I feel like the subject has tried to communicate in a calm and civilized, open way, but I guess things haven't really worked out, thus resulting in a Six of Swords situation where they have to leave. And another thing that I'm getting from all of these Six of Swords cards is that the departure, it's not a result of something rash or some kind of sudden breakdown of a situation. Like if you look at the skies in all of these cards, they're relatively calm, right? It's not like there's thunderstorms or lightning bolts, crashing down. Or like the solar, there's actually a moon back there, another moon here. Sorry, I said solar, right? Lunar, solar here. Like these images in the sky here, I think it shows that there's been reflection and thought that's gone into the situation or decision to leave, to depart. All right, and then finally, I'm just kind of like looking at the swords themselves. Like, I think it's just so fascinating seeing all these different ways they are arranged on the images. So first of all, I think there's one type where it's the front heavy swords. So for example, like in this one, you see that there's 5 in the front and 1 at the back. And I think for a lot of them, like they are actually quite front heavy. And to me, I feel like this kind of symbolizes that there are more reasons to leave than stay. Another interesting one is this one. It is front heavy, but at the same time, the way all these swords are arranged in a way where they're kind of like pointing towards one spot. It's like being constantly stabbed in the same spot over and over again, figuratively, of course. And it feels like that is the reason for the departure. And then this one is interesting too. I don't know if it shows, but basically the swords are all facing away. There are 4 down here, 2 up there, but the 4 down here, they're kind of like chasing the subjects away, and it's the butt end of the swords that's facing them. So it, to me, I don't know why, but it almost feels like even the swords have kind of like turned their backs against these poor subjects, and something is forcing them to leave here. And finally, this one, the subject is holding one of the swords, and it feels like it kind of, to me, it represents that they made a final decision, right? Because the sword is in their hands. It feels like they made that final decision to leave and embark on this new journey. And I like that sense of empowerment that it brings. So yeah, I'm sure there's plenty more to look at, but I want to get to the other cards too, so let's continue with the next set. Okay, so the next few cards are more thoth based, and when I first looked at these, I'll admit that I struggled a bit to find how they connect to the topic of departuring, because the key word here is science. Well, this one's clarity, but anyways, we'll get to that. The image itself doesn't quite have that same obvious depiction of, someone leaving, right? And things are looking a bit more abstract, I suppose. So first we've got the OG, the original thoth depiction here, with a very similar looking one here. Actually, maybe let's look at these 3 first. These 3, and then we'll get to this one later. So science, right? It's all about new discoveries and ideas, new findings, and information that perhaps disprove old thoughts and lead to new ones. Getting closer to the objective truth through logic and deduction. So, can you see where I'm going with this? So to me, it's like a mental version of a departure, whereas in the Rider-Waite-Smith one, I guess it's more like a physical or at most a emotional departure, maybe. So yeah, just looking back at these cards, there's the obvious swords pointing towards a central point, and to me that's the part about getting to the truth using logic. The swords, of course, being the logic part. They're all pointing to that central point of truth. So it's kind of like, when you do math, like there are so many ways to calculate an expression or different ways to prove a statement or theorem. But the real true answer, no matter which way you use, you will always get to that same answer, the real true answer at least. All right, next I want to talk about the lines in the background. I think it shows up better on this card. There are all these like crisscrossing lines in the back. It's actually here too, but it's much more subtle. But yeah, like you can see, I guess from this one at least, these lines are going off in all sorts of different directions. And I see that as the process of searching for the answer. Sometimes one has to go explore many different paths to arrive at the final destination or that conclusion or answer. And sometimes getting from point A to point B might not be a simple straight line. As with many things in life, it's never that easy. So for example, here you've got some lines that go like this, and maybe that could represent someone going off on a tangent. And then you've got these other lines that kind of get closer to the middle, but not quite. And sometimes you search for something, you get really close, but you're not quite there. But then there's always a line that goes through the truth, the answer that you're looking for. So, I think, we just have to persevere. And, if you're looking for something and you're not there yet, keep looking, because I think there will be that one path, that line that leads you to the truth, the answer that you're looking for. And then I also want to talk about at least in these two cards, there are these paper windmill looking things in the background. I don't know how well it's showing up for you, but I think that having this symbol in the background, to me, it gives a sense of motion. It feels like, the thoughts are turning, the subject is thinking, and that it's not a standstill situation. And so I've talked mostly about these two cards, and then I said I was going to talk about these three. I never got to this one. So yeah, this one, to me, it's not quite the same, but it's like this one is like a distilled version of this depiction. We're talking about all sorts of mental processes happening, and this one is like, what do you call it? It's like the aftermath of when one arrives at the answer or destination. Even though there are no swords here, the swords in this deck is actually called wind, and I think it's really fitting. It feels like the wind is that breath of fresh air, the renewal, that brings in clarity. And I think the colors used on this card really shows clarity in an incredibly beautiful and fitting way. I don't consider this deck to be a Thoth-based deck. Others might disagree, but I put it in this Thoth pile of cards because to me the image does feel more Thoth. With that diamond shape, there's a diamond shape here, and the cross, going on. So, to me it feels more Thoth, even though I don't consider the deck to be a Thoth-based deck. And of course, let's not forget this card over here. And I guess it's a more literal depiction of science, I suppose. It makes me think of the years and centuries it took for us humans to arrive at, say the planetary model we know today. Humans developing tools to explore the skies, going from exploring things on Earth to looking into the vast galaxies and the universe, right? And I find it interesting how the bottom part here is like this bright orange color. And to me, one of the main color associations for orange in tarot is that sort of like mental and intellectual energy. So I think this works very well. But yeah, I guess okay, let's move on to the next pile of cards. All right, so here's the next pile. It's the Marseille slash Pip card decks. And again, some of you might be wondering why this one here, if you know this deck, this one, as you can see, has the keyword science. And yeah, you might be wondering, like, why is this card in this pile? Why is it not in the thoth pile? I don't know how to explain it. To me, this deck is just more Pip than thoth to me. I mean, even looking at the major arcana cards in this deck, it doesn't feel very thoth to me for some reason. So in my mind, like, thoth is a certain kind of Pip deck, but certainly not all Pips are thoth decks. Does that make sense? And obviously that's just how I feel, and I don't think there's any definitive answer to that. So anyways, I guess let's just start with this card over here then. Marseille and Pip cards are a bit tricky to me because it's only something that I started looking into relatively recently in my tarot journey, and I have not read a single book on Marseille or Pips in general. So anything I have to say about these cards is just me going on a riff with absolutely no basis whatsoever, other than, I guess, my gut and intuition. All that's to say, I have no idea what I'm talking about here. So anyways, again, we're looking at this card over here. The first thing that I get by looking at this card is there's the Four Swords pointing up, and there's two pointing down that way. And the first thing I feel from this is a certain kind of oppression. It's like the two swords pointing down are trying to suppress the four swords pointing up. Maybe it's an argument, one side trying to prove their point. Or maybe it's one side trying to silence the ideas from another side. Because it's swords, right? So that's why I think it's got more to do with verbal aspects and thoughts. But looking back at the swords arrangement, so 4 at the bottom versus 2 at the top, and to me this shows that the oppressed side has the ability and strength to push through. With the force of gravity, the swords coming from the top, it can easily fall and stab the 4 swords at the bottom. Yet in order for the 4 swords to win, they not only have to dodge the 2 swords, they have to have that additional strength to push through gravity to get and rise to the top. And so how does this relate to departure? I guess in certain situations, it's hard to just leave. There might be things pinning someone down, preventing them from doing so, represented by the 2 swords at the top. And in order to make that escape and leave, it might not be an escape, but yeah, there may be difficult obstacles to go against, but what I get from this is that, just know that there is the strength there to make it happen if it needs to be that way. 4 is greater than 2, right? Mark my words. So, all right, let's move on to the next card. Let's talk about this one over here. So we've got another 4-2 sword situation going on, but it's a little bit different than the last one. And we have a boat. I think there's something in the guidebook actually about this, so let me grab that real quick. Oops. Okay, so I hope that's better. So I'm just going to read from this. It says, 6 of Swords, the ship of the dead. Osiris's journey on the Nile, seated in a boat that represents his brother and enemy Seth, is the model for whoever aspires to conquer destiny, a symbol of radical renewal and extreme danger. So, and then there's the upright and reversed meanings or some keywords there. So, yeah, I mean, I think this kind of journey does show some kind of departure here. And I don't know, can I just say that the swords here, like, to me, they feel like swords of triumph. It's like coming back home from war, perhaps. Not that I would know how that feels like. But, you know, like perhaps the soldier walking past these huge pillars that mark the entrance back to their hometown. And this card feels like someone having gone on a quest, and they're now departing from that situation and making the journey back home. That's what that feels like. Next, let's talk about this one right here. So, at first glance, it's very pippish, but as I was looking at it a bit more, it actually started to feel a bit more Thoth-like. You know, like the way the swords are arranged and all pointing towards the middle like that. And then there's that diamond shape on top. I don't know, maybe I should have put this with the Thoth set of cards. I mean, the diamond shape isn't, you know, in that same central location as how the Thoth one was, but yeah, anyways, and then these little shapes on the swords, to me, they kind of feel like little windows or portals to new ideas or thoughts. So, yeah, I don't have too much to say about that one, but let's move on and let's talk about this one up here. So it's kind of like the reverse of this one, because this one, everything is pointing towards the middle, and this one, everything is poking outwards. And, you know, the tip of the sword is touching the window frame, as if they're kind of like trying to chip away at it and break free from the window. I don't know. It's like, I don't know, there's this box that I feel like is keeping these swords in, and there's this sense of confinement and oppression that's similar to this card that I talked about back here, even though the swords are like in completely different arrangements. But yeah, this deck, like all the cards have this window frame, but it's the way that these swords are poking, and the tip of the sword is literally touching that window frame. I think it's that which makes it feel like, you know, that that sense of like, you know, I want to break free kind of, you know, feeling. And I feel like it feels like the start of some kind of progress that's going to happen. Like the blue color in the background, to me are like the obstacles and difficulties that will be encountered. And then the beams of yellow that cuts through them, those are like the new thoughts and ideas that will break through this and shatter the old ways of thinking or doing things. And ultimately, what will help get these swords, you know, to break free from this predefined box. Okay, next let's talk about the Visconti and the Marseille ones together, I guess, because to me there's a certain similarity going on, and that's with the way the swords are woven together in the middle like that. And I mean, you might say, well, they're all kind of like that, right? So what's so different about the Six of Swords? And to me, I think it's starting from the sixes where there's a real development of strength. So if you only have like, one or two swords, like it's easy to wobble and move, but when you have three woven in, I probably can't do that with my fingers, but you know what I mean, right? Like exactly how it's depicted here. Like when you have three woven together with another three, like it's so much more solid, the way they interlock like that. And it, to me, it just goes back to that idea of strength, development, courage to go forth with whatever change it might be, the departure. So here, these cards to me say that the foundational work is there to move on to the next stage. And finally, we have this last card of this set. And at first, it didn't really feel like there was much to go off of. It's not the most exciting arrangement of swords, is it? But then I noticed that there were some keywords at the top and bottom of the card. I think it's the top is cut off here from the screen, and the font is quite small probably, so I'll try to get like a close-up. But basically, there are two keywords at the top and bottom, and they're in Italian. So I looked up their translations, and the top one means declaration, and the bottom one actually means excursion. So I just think that those are both so fitting for this theme. All these ideas I've been rambling on about departure and having the strength to stand up to change, right? So yeah, that was the last one in this pile. I have one last pile of cards for you, and if you're still here, you're amazing. So let's go to the next and final pile of cards. Okay, so the last pile, this last set here, are some cards where their depiction of the Six of Swords don't really fit in with any traditional tarot system, at least in my eyes. And I'll try to keep this brief because I think I've said, most of what I wanted to say. So, I guess starting from the left here, what I'm picking up on is the way, like how the cat looks so comfortable with the Six Swords pointing at it. And to me, if I were in that position, like I would feel uncomfortable. Yet, just look at the way the cat is all curled up and napping. So clearly they are unbothered. And that to me says, or the message, I guess, here to me is like, learn to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. All right, the next card over here, I'm noticing or recognizing the word for declaration in Italian here, the red one. Except here it's in the reverse position, which is interesting. And then the top word there means voyage. And then, of course, we got this literal depiction of someone in the middle of a journey. So again, this all seems to work really well with the theme of departure. And one thing I'm noticing, and I'll try to get like a closer up of the image here because I don't think it's very visible right now. Yeah, and I don't know if this is like intentionally drawn the way it is, but this person's head, like with the line going down the forehead like that, it makes the head look a bit split, as if there were some kind of like undecidedness to the whole thing. But either way, like the journey is happening here. So there's that. And then this card over here with the flower. At first it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot going on in this card, but you know, I'm noticing how the way the central flower is, like it's forming, it's budding, it's in that stage where it's about to go full bloom, which to me is like a metaphor for what stage a situation is at. So to me, there's a clear sense of things, you know, progressing, moving forward. Right now, there's like perhaps a bit of friction or holdback that, you know, the person or the subject, whatever, that needs to push through. But the motion is in place, and you can see that the central part of that flower is about to bloom. So it's going to open up with a bit more time. And I like how there are also these two little supporting flowers at the bottom, as if saying to the middle flower, you know, you're not alone. And finally, the last card. This one's from the Rain Shadow Tarot, and I've already done a card by card deep dive for this deck, so I won't really get into too much here. But the gist I get from this card is, while it might be a difficult or messy situation, the person going through it, so this, you know, representing the old self, and this one is the new transformed self. You know, the person going through this situation will be transformed and changed by it, and hopefully for the better, because the facial expression on this person definitely feels relaxed. And I think for anyone departing from one situation or place, there's definitely going to be a sense of change and renewal. You know, you might look back and reminisce the past or the old you, the old ways, but notice the way the legs face. They're always going to move forward. All right, so that was me, you know, examining all the Six of Swords cards that I have. And as I was looking through these cards, like, for some reason the topic of immigration or migration in general came up in my mind, and I feel like it's very interconnected with the theme of departures, and I guess I just have a lot of mixed feelings about moving. As someone who's moved across the globe multiple times throughout my life since childhood, I think it's kind of made my sense of home and belonging a bit disorienting. And I guess an extension of that, like my sense of identity. Like I often think of what makes a place home. Is it the place where I was born? Is it where I grew up, or where I've lived the most? What about ethnic or cultural ties? Like, how does that tie into or contribute to where home is? So, something that I never gave much thought before, but which is kind of surfacing in my mind right now, is like when people ask me where I'm from. So to me, I guess like my identity is more rooted in Canada because it's where I've lived most of my life. So usually when people ask me that, I'll say Canada, or maybe a more specific place in Canada depending on who I'm talking to, right? But then sometimes the person asking would be like, "Oh, but where are you from?" And I assume that's because of my Asian appearance. And don't get me wrong, like I'm not trying to make this like a racial thing, and I don't blame them for asking. Like if anything, I take that as the person having an interest in my ethnic background, which is totally cool. But I think a simple question like that has also kind of subconsciously made me question what home for me is. I think having moved around so much, it's made me long for that concept of a forever home. I want home to be that permanent place. A place where I have the freedom to, say, decorate it the way I want to and not have to worry about packing things up again down the line. A place to make memories in, and be able to say things like, "Oh, remember like when we were talking about doing this and that, like we were sitting right over there." Having a permanent place, I think, would give me a much greater sense of security, peace, and fulfillment. Having said that, though, like, I understand that I'm already in a very fortunate position at the moment, and I'm definitely not trying to complain at all. I'm also trying to learn more about my astrological birth chart, and there is a concentration of planets in my fourth house, which is related to all things like home, roots, inner security, that sort of stuff. So learning about that has kind of helped me make sense of why I feel the way I do about the topic of home. Anyways, departures and change can be difficult, but I think like pushing through those waves and struggles can lead to more peaceful waters and open the way to new avenues and transformations. I have an immense amount of respect for people who have taken those difficult leaps and hurdles to, let's say, move to a completely new place, in search of new hope for their families, to seek betterment, and having to leave the familiar behind. That's really not easy, and I admire those who challenge old beliefs and systems, those who bring forth the change needed for a better world. So yeah, I guess that's all I've got for this video. I appreciate all of you who have managed to get through this incredibly long video. I don't know how it got so long, but I guess I should have seen it coming, so but anyways, well, I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.